Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to In-Depth Looksie. This is part 7, and this is where I'm going to start looking at the units in Codex Skitarii. Now I'm not going to go over the formations that have come after the units, like the stuff like the Battle Maniple or the War Cohort or whatever it is. I'm not going to go over that stuff. If you're enjoying this codex at all and you have an interest in pursuing it, you can pick up the codex and you'll be able to discover that stuff out for yourself. But I am going to be going over all the units in here. So I'm going to start off with going over the Skitarii Vanguard and the Skitarii Rangers. Now, I'm going to go over the unit, then the fluff of the unit, and then I'm going to repeat process for the other unit. So starting off with the Skitarii Vanguard, they're very well point costed. And in terms of stat lines, they have the ballistic skill of a Space Marine. The basic Space Marine ballistic skill is what they have. And their weapon skill, strength, toughness, and initiative is very average, and basically one less than what their ballistic skill is. So you have an idea now of their stat line. They have 1 wound and 1 attack, as you would expect. Their leadership is 8, which I consider pretty standard basic leadership. And because of the Skitarii Warplate, they have a 4+ armor save. Their unit type is infantry, and you get 4 Skitarii Vanguard to start off with, plus that 1 Vanguard Alpha. So that gives you a 5-man squad. So the 1 Vanguard Alpha stat line is basically the same as the Vanguard, except the Alpha has 1 additional wound, 1 additional attack, and 1 additional point of leadership. Everything else is the same. Now when it comes to war gear, it is very bare bones, and they just have the Skitarii Warplate and the Radium Carbine, and that's it. Option wise, you can include up to 5 additional Skitarii Vanguard, and the Vanguard Alpha can take items from the ranged weapons, melee weapons, special issue war gear, and Relics of Mars lists, which is pretty cool. 1 Skitarii Vanguard may carry one of the following: an enhanced data tether or an omnispecs. And up to 2 other Skitarii Vanguard may replace their Radium Carbines with 1 item from the special weapons list. And if the squad numbers 10 models, 1 additional Skitarii Vanguard can do the same thing. So if you have 10 models, up to 3 Skitarii Vanguard can have stuff from the special weapons list. So that's pretty cool. When it comes to special rules, you have Doctrina Imperatives, of course. They have a Feel No Pain on a 6+. They are Relentless, which I'm always a fan of. And they have Rad Saturation. So while a unit is locked in combat with 1 or more models with this special rule, all models in that unit subtract 1 from their toughness to a minimum of 1. Basically, the enemy models, the enemy units that are locked in close combat with the Skitarii Vanguard take a -1 to their toughness to a minimum of 1. That has nice potential. It can make it a bit easier for the Vanguard to finish things off in close combat if that's what it takes. It can combo very nicely with Painted Radium, or perhaps one of the Sicarians it can combo pretty nicely with as well. So, options there. So with that being said, their fluff, well, first off, they're Skitarii, so they follow all that basic Skitarii fluff, you know, humans, augmented, trained very well, given good equipment, stuff like that. But the Vanguard specific fluff is that they're basically rad troopers, and you know, with their Radium Carbines dealing out radiation death, it's no wonder why they're unofficially called that. So the Vanguard have very much a shock trooper feel to them, and kind of a sacrificial shock trooper feel to them, because in their fluff it states their weaponry is so potent, it's emanating so much radiation, essentially, rad poisoning as they call it, that the wielders are slowly being killed by it. Even with regular rad cleansing, they're slowly being killed by their equipment. Which, you know, super sacrificial kind of feeling also shows how dedicated, loyal, and almost forced loyal through engrams and stuff from data tethers they are. And it also shows how crazy the Mechanicum is, because they're basically utilizing radiation as a weapon, and that doesn't just go away, as we know. I'm not saying wherever they go it's like a Chernobyl event, but what I am saying is that they definitely make a war zone more toxic than it already is. And I just love the fact that the Mechanicum looks at that, it's okay with that, and just moves about their business. It feels so mechanical to me to have basically radiation guns. And they're so potent that it slowly is killing off the wielder. But at the same time, there's a certain fear element in their fluff that I like. I'm not saying that, you should be afraid of them in real life, because no. But in their fluff, there's a certain fear element because of this radiation. And as we know in real world, you can't see radiation happening. It just happens. And you don't really know you're being affected by it initially until you start feeling off, right? And in that case, it can be too late, depending upon how strong the dose is, or how long you've been exposed. But you don't really know what's happening until it's too late. And that's kind of the fear aspect of what they wield as a weapon. So I like that. It's pretty cool, and that's why they're rightly feared throughout the Imperium. I can only imagine that if I was a tech priest, I'd make sure I would appropriately shield myself from the radiation. But anytime I had to meet with Imperial officials that I really didn't care for, I would make sure to have a contingent of Skitarii Vanguard bodyguards with me, just for that reason. But anyways, that's just me. That's the Skitarii Vanguard. So up next is the Skitarii Rangers. Now they're also very well point costed, excuse me. But they're a bit pricier than the Skitarii Vanguard, so they're considered to be, I guess, more of a point sink, but I'm not saying that they're overpriced at all. They're still very reasonably priced. It's just that the Skitarii Vanguard are the cheaper unit points-wise. So where the Skitarii Vanguards are your shock troopers, your Skitarii Rangers are more of your long-range shooters. So keep that in mind. But their stat line for the Skitarii Ranger and the Ranger Alpha is the exact same as it was for the Skitarii Vanguard. That's because they're Skitarii. Makes sense to me. Their war gear is very basic. Again, Skitarii warplate, and in this case the galvanic rifle. It's a nice rifle, long range, precision shot rule is in there, which is nice. So, pretty cool rifle. Longer range for sure than the radium carbines. The options for the Skitarii Rangers are the exact same as they were for the Vanguard. So you heard me say for the Vanguard, everything I said option-wise there applies here for the Rangers. Now special rules for the Rangers, they have the Doctrinal Imperatives, they have that Feel No Pain on a 6+, they have Relentless, but since they're not Rad Troopers, they don't have the Rad Saturation. What they have is Move Through Cover instead, which is very fitting considering the Skitarii Rangers fluff. The Ranger-specific fluff of the Skitarii is the fact that these are indoctrinated, trained, immensely loyal, and their stamina is legendary, their determination is absolute. If they're given the orders to kill the high command of the enemy, they will pursue it until they die. They're not going to pursue it willy-nilly with reckless abandon, but they're going to pursue it until they die. And if the enemy, let's say, escapes the battlefield, they will continue to pursue. They have a different fear element to their fluff, and that is, it's not the invisible death of the radiation. This is the churning relentlessness of their advance. The fact that it's inevitable that they're going to make contact with you, and you're going to have a conflict regardless. There's no way to avoid it with these guys. They'll march through any weather conditions, through any type of hazard, and as long as it takes to get to you and kill you. So they're very much stalkers, hunters, and they're good at what they do. So I like that. The one thing I don't like about their fluff is how often they drill into your head that they walk everywhere. We get it, especially considering there's no dedicated transport in this book. We get it. But overall, I do enjoy their fluff. They are pretty capable. Their fluff and their actual rules work pretty well. Having that move through cover is very appropriate considering their fluff, and I do like them. They complement the Vanguard very well. So those two units complement each other very well. They don't step on each other's shoes when it comes to their battlefield capabilities. The Vanguard, on the one hand, are very much shock trooper-y, and the Rangers are very much more of a longer distance shooting. But because of their rules, they can still, maneuver and do things and be capable as ranged units. But what they do and how they're able to do it doesn't make one able to just take over the role of the other, if that makes any sense. They both have their distinctive parts to play, and if I were to collect Skitarii, I would definitely have a bunch of both of these units because they fit my way I like to play things. Now, I do wish that, of course, they had dedicated transports, because that's the big drawback of this codex, no transports, but I'll get into that in more detail in a later ramble. But I really do wish that the Vanguard, at the very least, had an optional upgrade to get the ability to deep strike. I get they don't want to let the Rangers deep strike. Okay, whatever, they're just going to march through everything. I get it, that's fine. But the Vanguard are your shock troopers, and there's nothing more shocking than deep striking in a bunch of radiation leaking, radiation shooting death machine shock troopers. I mean, that just seems it would fit so well. And if I was a tech priest leader, I would say, well, they're the Walking Dead anyway, let's teleport them, see what happens. We have a bunch of them, let's teleport this squad in, and if it works, we'll continue doing so until it doesn't work. So that, I don't know, that's just me. So that's the big unfortunate thing. The other thing I don't understand is why I don't have any grenades at all. I get it, they're not Space Marines, they don't need frag and crack grenades or melta bombs, I get that. The Space Marines are the super soldiers, without peer, you could say, in terms of the Imperium. I get that much for sure. That's why I really enjoy the Space Marines. But I could see them definitely having, I don't know, crack grenades at the very least. They're not wanting to necessarily get locked in close combat, the Skitarii Vanguard or the Skitarii Rangers. I get that. There's very little in terms of melee weaponry to choose from. Is very bare bones in terms, so that's kind of implying that they're more meant to shoot it. I get it, but why not give them like a crack grenade? I think that's very fitting, especially considering we're talking about the Skitarii of the Mechanicum, and the one thing the Mechanicum hates is the affront to the sacred machine. So affronts to the machine could be a looted and salvaged vehicle being utilized by the orcs. That is a travesty to the Mechanicum. It could be the Xenos tech of the Tau or the Eldar. That is not sacred machinery. It could be the chaos corrupted machinery. And therefore, I would think the Mechanicum would want the ability to put a stop to that, and I think crack grenades would have worked really well for that. And I think you could have given them crack grenades and nobody would have screamed havoc and said broken, unfair. So that's just my opinion there. They don't have it though. They have no grenades. Only one unit has grenades in this entire codex anyway, so it is what it is. But that's just my opinion. So, with that being said, that's going to be it for the Skitarii Vanguard and the Skitarii Rangers. And keep in mind, the reason why they have the exact same stat lines is because they are Skitarii. It's like having a Tactical Marine and a Devastator Marine. They're still both Space Marines. They just fulfill different roles. So, that's really it. Thanks for sticking through this long ramble. The next one's going to be on the Sicarian Rust Stalkers and the Sicarian Infiltrators, so stay tuned for that. And until the next one, take it easy.